make up a page now for this new Zodiac stuff. This just kind of happened, and I think the thing that finally put the nail in the coffin for me was the letter or the inscription that was on the desk at Riverside.
Mm-hmm.
Ends with the initials RH.
RH. Yeah, I saw that. It's definitely
and that's
interesting.
just like that.
It's always good.
Whoa.
It's always good, like there's a lot of crazy theories out there, but there's only a few viable ones, and it's an interesting one that I had not heard until Mark Potts came along. So thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it, bud.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
We'll talk again soon, okay? One of these days we'll do an entire podcast on the Alaska Hunter, and then we'll talk then, okay?
Yep. Thank you very much.
All right, Mark. You take care.
Thanks. You too.
And that was Mark Potts, and Mark's, he's done his homework, no doubt about that. I mean, you take it for what it's worth. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all theories and speculation, but everything else is as well. Now, on the line right now, though, we have the co-author of This is the Zodiac Speaking. Vic, bring him on in.
David, you there?
Yes, I am.
Doctor, I'll let you introduce yourself to everybody.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you well.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name is David Van Nuys. I am a PhD psychologist, now retired from Sonoma State University. And in 2001, I was the co-author of This is the Zodiac Speaking into the Mind of a Serial Killer, along with the lead author, Michael D. Kelleher.
Yeah, and one of the things that a lot of people praised your book for is that you guys actually kind of created a profile. You weren't throwing out crazy theories or anything like that. It wasn't one of those things where you're speculating a lot. It was you two creating a profile like the FBI would, basically, and that's what I found really interesting about your book.
Yeah, it was, I think, a fairly novel approach. I was approached by Michael Kelleher. I was chairman of the psychology department at Sonoma State University when he contacted me, and when he first contacted me, he said, "Hey, would you be willing to?" I didn't know who he was. As chairman of a psychology department, one gets a lot of very interesting phone calls and emails and so on. And so I got an email from this guy. I didn't know who he was, basically saying, "Hey, would you be willing to look at some letters from a serial killer?" And I wrote back and said, "Well, I don't know anything about that topic, but, I'm always willing to kind of explore something new and noodle around. And if you want to send me some samples, I'll noodle with them and get back to you." So he, he didn't even tell me what the case was. He didn't say this is about Zodiac or anything like that. And, after I thought, I said, geez, I don't even know who this guy is. I wonder if he could be a serial killer.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of looking for a lead,
Yeah.
But then I did a little research, and I discovered that the guy who contacted me, Kelleher, had just been the subject. His previous book had been the subject of a 4-page article in the New Yorker. And so then I realized, wow, if you have a book that's reviewed in the New Yorker, you're big time. So
very true.
So he's a very successful author, a true crime author, had written other books, and he assured me when I asked, well, what's going to happen with this book and so on, he assured me, oh, this is going to get published. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So he didn't have a contract or anything. He didn't have a publisher lined up, but he was just totally confident. And what he wanted me to do as a psychologist, he said, look, I'm going to send you the letters that the Zodiac wrote. Oh, he didn't even tell me it was the Zodiac. He said, at some point you're going to recognize this case, he said, but I want to just send you these letters, because he got really excited about the initial batch that he sent me and I kind of noodled around with, and he got very excited, and he said, hey, I'm going to totally scrap what I've done if you're willing to go along with me on this, and I want to reorient my book around the analysis that you do. And so I will describe the forensic evidence and I'll send you a letter, and I'll tell you the forensic evidence up to that point, and then let you analyze the letter, and then I'll send you the next letter and give you some more forensic evidence and so on. So that's how we constructed the book, sort of trading back and forth in that way. But I was basically reading these letters blind, and as I say, just kind of noodling around with them, trying to use my training as a psychologist and my own intuition.
So you spent a lot of time. I mean, I guess the way I would look at it is he was doing almost the physical evidence part of it, whereas you're trying to put yourself in the mind and in the shoes of a serial killer, correct?
Exactly. And I was not, and still really am not, a expert on serial killers. Mm-hmm. So, I'd like the average person. I watch a lot of TV. And I've always liked reading crime fiction. But I was willing to take the risk, in a way, a bit of a psychological risk. It occurred to me, if I'm going to try to put myself in this guy's mind and experience it from there. And I realized as I was contemplating doing that, I thought, well, I could have a really bad trip doing this. And happily, there was only one time, there was one night that I woke up in the middle of the night. I don't remember it very clearly, but I woke up really startled, as if there were a presence there that was I think had me in a bear hug or something like that. That was the only thing that happened. Other than that, I felt fine.
It's interesting you brought that up, because that was actually the next question I was going to ask you. You state yourself that you're not a serial killer expert, so to jump into that kind of field, I mean, and you touched on it, but did it have an effect on your mental state at times beyond just that? I mean, was it something that weighed on you at different times? I mean, because you're going over all these things and just thinking of I'm sure you already know, but what people are capable of.
Yeah, it's if you really let yourself get into it and think about it, it's very, very disturbing. I think I created, because there was some distance in time, not so much geographically, because it happened in California, sort of in and around where I live, and so. But the fact that it was already. We wrote the book in 2001, and it happened, I think, in the late 70s, early 70s. And so, 30 years separating it. So for me, there was a level at which it wasn't fully real, so that it wasn't as upsetting as it might have been. Although it did occur to me, to wonder, well, am I putting myself and my family at risk here by doing this? Because, I'm talking about his mama here. I'm going to be, he might get upset and come after me. So that's definitely a thought that went through my mind, but I sort of shoved it to the back of my mind and just decided to proceed anyway.
Well, the fact that
but there was a way in which there was a way in which it felt contemporary, because I got excited by the process as we were working on the book, and I felt like, man, we're on this guy's trail, and we're going to get him.
Well, I was going to say, if you'd been approached, let's say in '85, and it was more fresh, and there's more of a possibility that maybe somebody would have some sort of backlash. Because now, I think realistically, a lot of people believe whoever was the Zodiac Killer is probably deceased or in jail, or something has happened.
Be my guess.
If it was that time period, would you have gone forward with the book? Or, I know it's a theoretical, but that's what we deal in. Yeah,
I probably would have, because I've always been kind of a risk taker. And so I probably would have. The thing that I think would have given me most pause for thought is the fact that I do have a family. I've got a wife, and at the time I had some young kids. So that might have given me thought, pause for thought.
Yeah, that was actually something they touched on in the Zodiac movie. The Robert Graysmith account of everything is, the effect that it has on the family.
I thought that movie was really good, and it could have been a lot more sensationalistic than it was. I mean, it could have traded a lot more in blood and gore and so on, and they really avoided that. So I really respected that part of it. Unfortunately, Graysmith's book came out just before ours did, and so it really eclipsed our book, and particularly the fact that he named a suspect, not even hypothetically, but kind of asserting, okay, this is it. This is who the Zodiac is or was, made his book very successful on the market. And we didn't do that. And my co-author, Kelleher, who's much more steeped in the facts, the details of the case than I am, much more expert about it, he did not buy Graysmith's theory.
No, and quite frankly, neither do I. I mean, but part of
a
it
lot
is
of people
that,
don't. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are things that match up just fine, but there's a lot of things that don't. And at the end of the day, you know, you need to have a match somewhere along the way that's going to say for sure, unless he didn't work alone, which is also, you know, who knows. But let me ask you this. You know, 14 years later, after you've done all that research, people are coming forward all the time. This never ends, apparently. Do you have an opinion, even if it was a very limited one, as to who, if any of the suspects were actually the Zodiac Killer?
No, I can't name a person, but what I can tell you is that I've been contacted by a number of people, just as you found me and contacted me, and I've been contacted over this period of time by people who say, I know who the Zodiac is or was, and it's ranged it's from my mother, it's from my neighbor, or was my uncle, or was some other person that somebody had deduced, and some of the people have produced really compelling evidence, circumstantial evidence, that were some that I had an extended correspondence with, going back and forth, and me trying to challenge them, and they really had me going, to the point where one of the suspects was a San Francisco businessman, a very successful, prominent person, and I found I started having fantasies, well, maybe I'll just go down to San Francisco and I'll follow him to the barber shop and get some hair clippings, or I'll follow him to a restaurant and get his water glass, and because there was some feeling that there might be fingerprint or other kind of evidence available on the letters that that the Zodiac might have licked and so on. So I didn't do that, but what I learned in the process is that it's possible to construct a case based on circumstantial evidence that just is totally compelling, and that you would just say, yeah, this fits everything that we know. Boy, this could really be the person. And so it's emerged as a huge caution to me about the human mind's ability to construct logical connections between any complex set of facts. In other words, you have to worry about this in science as well, that people can develop a theory given enough information or enough facts. It's really possible to construct a theory. So a couple of the suspects that were developed through this communication back and forth between me and somebody else. There was one that I was dialoguing with this guy for a couple of years, and he really had me going. Well, you may be aware that 2020, a TV program, sort of a news TV program, or you know about that show?
Yes.
Yeah, well, they devoted a whole, it was either one or two episodes to investigate 4 of the suspects that that they had 4 of the leading suspects that they had learned about